Josh, what's up, man? Welcome to Dad Edge, my friend.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm excited to have you on. So I'm holding up, for those of you guys watching us on YouTube, you see me holding up Josh's book, which is Hard to Kill: How to Improve Your Self-Defense Skills, Ignite Your Inner Savage, and Protect Your Family at All Costs. I have to admit, though, you and I are the same age. Do you know what I thought about the very first time I saw this book?
What's that?
Come on, man. What do you think?
Oh, the movie Steven Seagal.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Back in the day, Steven Seagal, I remember when Van Damme was real popular and the Seagal movies were out and all that. And I remember that movie, dude, Hard to Kill. I love that movie growing up back in the.
I loved him. I met him at an event down here. It was a Doheny Blues Festival. It was a bunch of rock and roll stuff.
Yeah.
And he was in his komodo or whatever, the Asian get up.
Yeah.
His hands in his pocket. Nobody knew who he was. I did. And I walked up to him and I said, "Steven, how you doing?" He's like, "I'm very good." Very, very Steven Seagal-esque. And I got a picture with him and I was all giddy and happy and nobody knew who he was. And I was like, this is a badass moment in my life. Steven Seagal right here.
Dude, that's cool, man. That is very, very cool. Hey, I want to just, I want to start with you with the first experience you ever had in martial arts. How old were you when you started doing this stuff?
I kind of got a late start. I wasn't one of the kids who grew up in mixed martial arts. I didn't do the traditional karate, that most kids start at when a young age, or taekwondo.
Sweep the leg.
What's that?
Sweep the leg.
Yeah. No mercy. Right. I watched all those movies and I loved them. I soaked it all in, but I never went, I did soccer practice and all that stuff, but I never went to fighting until about my early 20s. Me and my buddy just started boxing. And we would, I got into UFC. I grew up watching Mike Tyson and doing all that. So we put the gloves on and we would just do the prison style boxing, which was no head hits, just everything below the neck. And we would just do it often. And then one day I hurt his ribs or something, and he was a server at Claim Jumper in Huntington Beach. And the server was like, "Why can't you do your job right? What's going on?" And he says, "Oh, my buddy hurt my ribs. We were boxing." And he says, "Oh, you really want to know how to fight? You and your buddy come to my gym." And it turns out this guy pretty much just ran a fight club. It was it was a high school gym, and he was a judo Olympian. So if you don't know about judo, it's a lot of throws. It's a lot of badass takedowns. And we went there, and I was, 6'2", 225, thinking I was a hard ass. And if anybody knows, when you walk into a gym thinking you're the badass, you walk out with your tail between your legs and you get humbled real quick. And there's two avenues you could take after that. You could either say, "You know what? I want to mentally think I'm the badass and never have to do that again." Or you just, like me, go every single day after that, absorb it. How can I do this? Because to me, it was a chess match. It was like, how did these guys, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys, tie me up like a rag doll? I'm strong. I can lift all these weights and everything else. I walked out of there thinking, I need to figure this out. This is a chess match to me. I'm hooked. From then on out, we did jiu-jitsu because he was really into the King of the Cage out here as a local promotion. So he had jiu-jitsu guys come, Muay Thai guys come. And then we would just, instead of Friday Night Lights going to football games, we would go to other places and spar and fight. At the time, it wasn't legal in California, so we called them smoker fights to kind of go under the radar of legalities that were going to come our way. And we would just put the mouthpiece in and go in and just fight other schools, fight other teams. And like I said, I absorbed it. To me, and a lot of people think that, fighting is brutal, it's too barbaric, it's this and that, whatever the stigma is. And to me, it was a chess match. How can I beat my opponent by doing, if he's a ground guy, how can I beat him on the ground? If he stand up, and I just started thinking about that aspect of it. So I just started absorbing as much as I could, fighting as much as I could. And that's how I started. I was a little late starter. You see a lot of these kids, and especially in the UFC, they've been doing MMA since they were 10 or 12. And I see it now, my son's jiu-jitsu place. There's little killers in there. And that wasn't me at all. I started late in life. So that's how I got my start.
Did you ever have any issues growing up being bullied or anything like that?
Yeah. And again, in the book, I have talked about it where I've got, I had an older sister. And so having an older sister, she had the boys coming around her, and she kind of had some people, if they ever mess with me, they had to deal with, her friends and all that. So I did deal with some issues where, I look back at it now and I'm like, why didn't I fight back? Why didn't I do this? Why I was emotionally just scared to try to fight back. So I never did. And that's why maybe later in life, I took it so far and got in cages and did all that, because I felt the mental breakdown, the mental torture of not fighting back. And to me, that killed me. Like I got a few punches, I got this and that, but I never got it to the extent that I see now when I read about and hear about. I mean, it was, I didn't grow up in a bad area at all. It's just typical kids being kids. But it really affected me that I didn't. It affected me more my lack of action than their action of bullying me. I didn't look at it as like, why is that kid being a jerk or this and that? I took it harder on myself as like, why didn't I do anything? Why didn't I stand up? And that's why I think now, we mentioned a little earlier, my dad didn't teach me how to throw a punch. He didn't teach me, because I didn't run to my dad and say, hey, Dad, I was bullied. Right? Like most kids, we keep it internal and we don't say much. And so he didn't know there was a problem. I'm sure if I did, he would have said, hey, this is how you punch. This is because he grew up in a different atmosphere and he had to fight a lot. But I never told him. I never talked about it. So that's why, I'm so anti-bullying. With my kid, he's 9, he's in jiu-jitsu. And if I ever find out, if I ever hear from the school or anything else that he uses it to bully, because, at 9 years old, there's kids who don't ever want to have contact, and that's totally fine. But he knows a lot. And if you do stuff to him, he knows how to respond. And we're very strict about if you ever use what you know to bully other kids, it all comes crashing down on you real quick, because we're so anti-bullying here. But yeah, I was bullied, not to the extent of, super severe, but my lack of action was more of what I took out of it than the other guy being a jerk, whatever.
Your story and mine are very similar. So when I grew up, I was overweight. And I was bullied. I was pushed around, and we had this sort of revolving door of father figures that kind of came in and out of my life, like, same guy, different face, different name type thing, like partier, and definitely on their radar to teach me how to fight or even be a father was so far off,
Mm-hmm.
And I was bullied quite a bit. And I remember the exact same thing that you're talking about, which is I remember not standing my ground, because to be quite honest, I wasn't confident with it. I had never hit anybody, and I was terrified to do it, like, because I didn't know how. And what if I went to throw a punch and even thoughts of like, what if I miss? Yeah. And then I'm just going to piss this guy off more, and then he's going to beat me up even more. And I remember being in 7th grade. It was the first time I ever punched anybody. And there was this dude, man, his name was Bill Nickrent. I'll never forget him. And Bill, if you're listening, thanks. And I'll never forget this guy, because he would always just bully the hell out of me. And he was older than me. He was an 8th grader. I was 7th grader. He would just push me around, just relentless, just drove me freaking crazy. And I'll never forget, just anger kept brewing and brewing and brewing. And it just became like this puppet show, like this show that everybody wanted to go watch. Like, hey, let's go watch Bill beat up Larry at recess. It happened all the time. And I'll never forget getting ready. I was looking at the clock and I was like, God bless, recess is coming. It's going to be horrible. What am I going to do? And I just remember kind of feeling angry, at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what it was, but I remember him pushing me down on the black pavement I remember exactly even where I was at. Pushing down, and my chest hit the pavement, my hands hit the pavement. I remember looking at the pavement and I'm like, I'm done with this shit. And I remember like saying that to myself. And I literally just got up and I had my back to him. I just turned around and freaking just cold cocked him right in the face. And everyone, I was so amped up with adrenaline. I didn't even know if I actually hit him or not. Like, I couldn't feel it on my hand. And all of a sudden, like, his nose just blew open and blood's coming out. And I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? Right. I was just like, and everyone was going nuts. And he like walked away and his nose is like just oozing blood. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, and that guy never messed with me again. Yeah. He actually shook my hand after we both went to the principal's office. And even in the principal's office, like, I just stood my ground. I was like, I'm tired of him picking on me every day. I just got tired of it. And I was up to the point where I was just like, I don't care if I get punished. but I'm tired of this. And that's all it took. And he stopped, and no one messed with me for the rest of that junior high year, and even into 8th grade. Yeah. But I remember like just being so uncertain. And I went through years, man, years of just from the time I was like probably in 3rd, 4th grade up until then, it was just all the time. And I always told my boy, and then I got, same as you, I got into martial arts in my 20s, not in my teens, not as a kid. I actually didn't get into it until college. And I fell in love with it. I actually fell in love with, quote unquote, I guess, martial arts. I got into wrestling when I was in high school. And I still got bullied in high school up until about junior year. But I remember wrestling gave me such this incredible just bout of confidence. So like, and there were fights I won and fights I lost, but at the end of the day, I had a better skill set to defend myself. But it really boiled down to exactly what you're talking about. Like I felt so disarmed. I felt so not confident because I had no clue what the hell to do. Now that I have my own boys, I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And I'm actually teaching my 9-year-old right now how to strike and how to defend himself. And we have the exact same rule in our house. I always tell the boys, I was like, God forbid you come home or I get a call from the school letting me know that what I'm teaching you or what you're learning, because they've done martial arts too. They've done jujitsu and Krav and that kind of thing. I was like, God forbid I ever hear that you're using this. With great power comes great responsibility. And if you're using this power irresponsibly, there will be hell to pay. There will be no punishment at school that will match the punishment you get at home. Yeah. So, and they never have. They've always been really good at, just simply like using it when they need, and they've never had to use it. I think the funny thing is that I think when you know a thing or two on how to defend yourself, and I'm not saying they know everything, but they definitely know that if someone were to come at them, what to do in certain situations. I think you walk with a certain amount of confidence that maybe a predator can sniff out and be like, I don't know what it is about that dude, but I ain't gonna mess with him. 100%. I don't know, but I don't know what that is. But it's interesting, like how similar you and I are when it comes to that. But I want to go back to you have a 9-year-old son, you have a wife, and I know one of the things that you teach, obviously, is basically being vigilant, right? At all times, being very aware. I scrolled through your book, even though I just got it, and I saw this one part where it's like, never have your face buried in your phone, like in public, right? Like always be vigilant. But I'm so curious as to, now that you've been doing this for the number of years that you have, how do you serve clients and people that work with you, and basically what you do this for a living, correct? Yeah. I mean, I have a syndicate group. I do seminars, and we do one-on-ones, everything. It's just, like you said, to go back a little bit about confidence, there's 2 things I want to say about that. Confidence, you can see in predators, you mentioned. There was a guy I interviewed, and he said, I just saw this thing about pedophiles. And they asked the pedophile, he was a convicted pedophile, and he was in jail. And they said, well, how did you choose your victims? And he says, first, for me, I looked at the parents. Were the parents going to be an issue? Were the parents going to fight back? Were the parents going to get involved if I snatched this kid? I mean, that gives me chills even talking about it. Like, that's gut wrenching. If that doesn't, and I teach kids and we teach adults, but if you as a parent are the reasons why, I mean, it's a god awful thing, right? And we never want this to happen. But if somebody looks at me and decides that I'm an easy target, or my kid's an easy target because I don't give off that vibe, then I've failed. So I go out, like we talked a little bit about earlier. If I have a huge beer belly and sometimes it's okay to run, but if I can't run to save my life, then I mean, it's I need to put off that vibe. I'm the first responder to my family. Like I said, there's my family right there. I go to the gym at 5 every morning. I go to not Krav anymore. I go to jiu-jitsu. I go to tactical trainings. Everything is for them. And if somebody looks at me and says, oh, he's easy, all I got to do is a 1-2, blah, 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 and I can go get the kid, then I've failed, right? If I ever not put out that vibe that I'm the wrong one to mess with, and that kid is hands off, I'll go in prison. I don't care. As long as my family's safe, I'll do what I have to do. So once you do train, like you said, with your boys, they learn a little bit. Just go to a class for a month. The confidence you learn and the confidence you gain, you're
people see that. You can go out in the street and like you were talking about, situational awareness is what we call it. You can kind of go outside and go, okay, that guy looks like he knows what he's doing. Even that woman, she looks like she just got out of the gym. She's pretty, but I don't want to mess with her. We all do this instinctively. And that's what I teach also is situational awareness. Because as soon as you walk out that door, like right now, I'm in green. We kind of do it like the traffic lights, right? Like I'm green because I can see my street out here. I'm in my office. I'm pretty chill. I know where my kid and my wife are. I'm relaxed. As soon as I walk out that door, I go into yellow. Not because I don't have to army crawl to the car and, do all this super tactical stuff. But the fact is that there's people out there watching. And they're not people in my bushes or anything, but you got to elevate your situational awareness because there are people watching. I talk a lot about going to a gas station and gas station safety. Most people have their phones when they go put it in there. What do? They sit there on their phone right there and people sneaking into their cars. People are sneaking up on them. I show videos all the time of people and bad scenarios and bad shit happening to good people and how you could prevent it. And so when you brought up the phone, just look around. Like once you go out today, watch how many people bebop through life with their head down, or, they got their hands full of groceries and they're not paying attention, and it's that kind of stuff that I teach is like, hey, you can learn to strike, right? And I totally think everybody needs to learn how to strike because you need to learn how to fight on your feet and you need to learn how to fight on the ground because you don't want to go to the ground, but a fight will go to the ground. Most 95% of the fights are going to go to the ground. So you need striking, groundwork, weapon control, weapon defense. And it all starts with situational awareness. If you see a danger happening or coming across the street, we all have that instinct, that gut feeling. This guy looks off. Act on that gut feeling. Don't just keep walking and go, oh, I hope this guy isn't going to reach out at me. Go off of that gut instinct and walk across the street. Turn around and go the other way. We have safe work with my family, and we practice it. Like everything I'm talking about, it works. It's fine and dandy, but if you don't practice it, then it's not going to work. You're just going to forget it. If I have a meeting with my family and say, look, if an intruder comes in my house right now, this is what we do, X, Y, and Z, and now we're going to run through it. But if I do it on a Tuesday and then we never come back and address it again, just like everything, muscle memory, it's going to go out the door. So yeah, kind of rattling on with the first part, but situational awareness starts. And if you can spot the danger before it becomes a threat, then you don't even have to use your hands. You don't have to use your feet. You don't have to do all the things that you've been training for, but you can spot it before it happens. But just take it one step further, put the work into the striking, put the work in the groundwork, put the tactical efforts in before you need it. Because like you mentioned before, with the confidence, I train my ass off and I hope I never have to use it. But I want to know that I can use it, then need it and not know how to do it, right? And freeze up and not do it. So I put myself through the grinder. I'm 47 years old. I've been I've done fighting in this net. I have enough. I have the gold medals back here. I can sit back and go, you know what? Back in the day, I did this. I don't. I want to keep doing it because one day if I'm under attack, we travel, we go to a lot of places. If I'm ever under attack and I haven't put the work in, then I'm blaming myself. I'm hard on myself, even to this day, 47 years old. I still need to put the work in and do the work and be consistent about it.
I'm actually just ferociously typing notes as you're talking here. So like the green, and I'm guessing situational awareness, you've got green, you've got yellow, and then there's red, correct? Is red, am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So is red something is happening or is red something's about to happen?
Red contact. Red is it's time to throw down. It's time to take action. And that could be anything from, obviously we don't ever want conflict. You don't want to engage because bad things happen. It's, obviously we've seen all the things on the news. One punch hits you and you hit the back of the ground, you're dead. You never want to get engaged in a conflict. You don't want to take your skill and go, oh man, I learned this rad combo. I want to go out and use it. When you become part of the fight community, you'll understand that, they're the most gracious, most down to earth, most courteous people in the world, I think. And I've been part of it for a long time. Not one of the people I go out and train with go out of that studio and go, where's a guy I can fight right now? Right. So red means, they're coming into your space and you want to hold them off. You're like, hey, and I've had this scenario, guy pull a knife on me. I'm like, hey, back off, right? But this is red now because, and I would act differently if my family was behind me, but I got to take all these decisions and I got to rapid fire. And what am I going to do? So you keep them out at distance, but when they engage, red is you're acting now, right? There's a book that I read. It's called Left of Bang right here. And Left of Bang is, who's the author? Actually, I know the guy who wrote this, but Patrick Von Horn and Jason A. Riley. They talk about everybody reacts once the bomb goes off, right? Let's say an attack happens. Then you get therapy to walk through what happens. Then you try to figure out what cues did you miss. But Left of Bang talks about what you should have done. How did you miss the bang? How did you miss the attack? Why didn't you see things happening before they were a threat, right? And that's kind of what situational awareness is what are the cues? And I'm reading another book right now too, called The Gift of Violence, I believe it is. And these people had violent attacks happen to them. And they go to this therapist and he lets them diagnose that, most of them are like, oh, I can't believe Bob was so nice. I didn't see any of the signs. And then the guy dissects and he goes, you didn't see any of the signs? And then you let him sit there and they go, well, he did kind of get rude on a text message. He did and then you kind of dissect. That's all Left of Bang. There's so many clues and so many signs that people need to be aware of. And most people don't. They're sitting on their phones. They're sitting, on social media and worrying about their status there. They're not looking out. They're not looking around Left of Bang before bad shit happens. And so that's what situational awareness is being aware of the danger before it becomes a threat. Because then when it comes a threat, you're in red and now you have to act on that. And that's where all the training, the physical training comes into action.
So I have so many questions. I think one of the things we could do on this particular podcast is I really want to give men some situational things that they can be aware of, right? Basically a way of operating and things to think about that might not even be on their radar, when it comes to this kind of stuff. Real quick. So just to confirm, you had someone actually pull a knife on you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I definitely want to hear about that one.
Yeah.
But I want to share just a quick story with you. We were taught situational awareness in one of the martial arts that I did for like 7 years. And always just being very, very aware of your surroundings, body language, people, noises, all those things. I took my oldest son to hockey game here, the Blues game, a couple of weeks ago. And where we had to park was a little far away, and the walk to the rink was a little shady. Shady meaning like there could be some bad things that happen on my walk, right? And you see this stuff all the time. So he and I are walking through this parking lot that's kind of dark, and then we kind of go to this overpass, and it's just us, just the two of us. And I see this guy. I think he was homeless or down on his luck or something. He's probably in his mid-30s, had a shaggy beard. And we were probably 50 feet away, and he's like sitting on the overpass, and he's just kind of like, you could tell, like, I think he was kind of like just measuring us up a little bit. Like that's the vibe that I got. And my son was in front of me walking just about a foot or two, and I'm behind him. And I see this guy looking at us, and I was like, I started playing you talk about yellow. I mean, it was yellow, right? Bright yellow. And I'm sitting here thinking like, this guy could easily grab my kid, put a knife to his throat, a gun to his head, demand that I give him all of my money and, or kill us. Right. So I took, as we're walking, I took my son and I just took my right hand and I put it like on the top of his hip bone, and I just slightly moved him to the left of me. And it was between me and him as we walked past this homeless guy. And I just kind of like kept my eye on him the entire time as we passed. And I could tell and then he just kind of like did this thing, and he just sort of like looked down and looked away.
Yeah.
But I don't know what that really was, other than like, I wasn't trying to send a message of like, dude, you better not screw with us. Right. But I was more or less like, if you're going to get to him, you have to get through me.
And that's smart. And that's what you need to do. You did the right thing. But what I've done with my son, because we've been in scenarios like that, is we have the safe word, right? So what you could have done when you're on that overpass my son, we have a lot of homeless guys. We're in California, so we have a lot of homeless people. He now says the safe word to me. So what you could have had with your son was, for us, it's pineapple. So if I say pineapple, he gets behind me and he grabs onto my belt buckle or board shorts, because I'm mostly in board shorts. And so that way, if dad has to act and I have to throw punches, when we practice this, he stays tight to me. So I'm swinging and I don't have to worry about him. I don't have to worry if he just starts running down the overpass the other way. I don't have to worry where he's at. He's holding on to me, right? So if we've seen this case where there's homeless guys on the ground, we've seen cases where there's kind of, they're acting erratic. And I'll say pineapple, and he gets close to me. And even with my wife, she'll get close to me. She'll get behind me. So if dad has to act, I'm throwing out here without worrying, like you always see people throwing punches over your family or something. To me, their safety's first. I'll take whatever damage, whatever, but I'll make sure they're safe. So you did the right thing, and having your son aware of that, and kind of, I don't care what he thinks, that homeless dude or whatever he is. I don't care if he thinks I'm being rude. I don't care if he thinks I'm, being stuck up or I'm some rich white guy. My number one safety is my son and my family. So if you're offended by my actions, screw it. I don't care. If you're offended, whatever. And we interact with some of these people because they're getting out of line, or some of them are real happy. We're on the beach all the time and how's it served, this and this and that. And I can tell my son gets a little, uncomfortable. And I go, well, he was just being nice, son. He was a little happy, but he wasn't a threat, right? Because we talk about every scenario that we've had to use a safe word, and we talk about it. What caused me to say it? He'll say it too. He'll say a lot of the times. And you could sense your son when something's off. He does that a lot. And he goes, Dad, and I go, no, it's not a threat. Whatever it is, we'll talk about it. But have a safe word with your family and use it and practice it. And then, to my son's credit, I had the word pineapple. I said, hey, if we ever use, and we practiced it and we drilled it. And one day we were pineapple and he got behind me and we did it and we got past the threat. And he's like, Dad. I go, yeah. And he goes, well, what's the word that I can relax now? I go, that's a good point, my man. So it's watermelon. So he brought that to my attention, because I'm like, yeah, pineapple is the word where we got to act. Right. And then in my mind, I know the threat's gone and we've moved on. But at the time, he was like 6 or 7. He goes, Dad, what's the word that I can relax now and bebop around? I'm like, that's a very good point. So that they're aware. It doesn't matter what age. I've never treated my son like he was an infant. Like, I talked to him like a kid, and we try to work things through. But he brought that to my attention, and I was blown away. Like, he is aware. He knows what's going on. And to his credit, he told me the watermelon is now the okay, all dangers are gone word. So we use watermelon. But yeah, you did the right thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's interesting too, because the body language thing, the thing that you're trying to portray without words, right?
Yeah.
Is that, yeah. So I'm curious, and then I want to get in. I'm curious about the story of somebody actually pulling a knife on you, and I want to hear more about that. But I also would love to cover, if we were to give men some of the simplest things that they can do after listening to this podcast. Just things that they can be thinking about that perhaps might not even be on their radar, like this whole thing with having a safe word with your family, them being behind you, being publicly vigilant. I even know that it's towards the end of the book, but it's basically, I think you called it the four principles of becoming hard to kill. I would love to go through that a little bit, and just some micro level lessons that you have there too.
Yeah. Well, the first one is situational awareness. Like we talked about earlier, the last thing we want to do is get in a physical confrontation. I've been training 20 plus years and I still don't want to go out and get in a fight. There's no reason to. And bad things happen. It doesn't matter if you win the fight, something bad's going to happen, right? So situational awareness is number one. Once you can fine tune that, like you did with your son, you might not have trained for it, but instinctively you knew as a protector that, hey, this is kind of a shady guy. We need to figure this out. And you had options. You could either turn around or you kind of moved your son around. But that's a situational awareness that most people, and if you're keen to situational awareness, go anywhere and watch how people lack situational awareness. It's scary. Like I said, with the gas station, and this is kind of stuff that, dads can do afterwards. When I go get my gas, I put the nozzle in, I go to the hood of the car about 5 feet off. So I can see every angle. I can see the street. I can see everywhere around me. So and I'm not on my phone. My phone's in my car. I'm fully aware. I do a little stretching, do some calisthenics. I'm making myself hard to kill. Somebody can walk and somebody could be casing the gas station. They're going, that guy's on point. He's not screwing around with his phone. He's going to be hard to kill. And they're not going to, no, most predators don't want a confrontation. They're down on their luck. They're on drugs, whatever the case may be. They want to take your stuff and move on. They don't want to fight. Most of them are not trained. They don't know how to fight. So if you do fight back and know 1 or 2 moves, you're going to annihilate that guy and make his day hell. So we'll go back to situational awareness. There's things that you can do at the restaurant, right? When you walk in the restaurant, and again, I'm not being paranoid. I'm not army crawling at things. I still go out and enjoy time with my family, but I'm aware. My situational awareness is on point. I'm sitting with my back to the like if I'm in a booth, I'm watching the front door. I know where the exits are. I know who's coming in there. I know if this couple's having a fight. I know if these guys are drunk and being rowdy. And I'm not like Jason Bourne where that guy can run 7.5. I'm not doing any of this. Like, okay, hold on, guys. I need to take mental notes here. It takes 2 seconds to survey the area. My back's against the wall. If anything pops off, I can act. If anybody runs into that door with any kind of bad intent, I can act. And so these are the kind of things that situational awareness is about. That's number 1. Number 2 is strength and conditioning. If you can't outrun your attacker, obviously it's going to end bad. I say basically you need to be able to do 20 push-ups. My wife sent me something a while back that's saying, she goes, are you part of the 1%? 1% was like somebody who can do 20 pull-ups, 50 push-ups, and 100 sit-ups in one round without dying. I go, yeah, I can do that. Most people can't. And it's scary. Like most of my friends are pretty fit. I hang out with a bunch of tough guys. And I don't understand like why people can't do that, right? It's just weird. But strength and conditioning is huge. So that's the second principle. The third one is training, jiu-jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai. You have to put the time in to learn striking, because every confrontation, you're going to have to throw a punch, or you're going to have to defend yourself. You're going to have to parry. You're going to have to do things. And for striking, groundwork, once the fight goes to the ground, you don't want to be down there for very long. So how do you get up? How do you, if the guy's got a knife, how do you disable him? There's tons of things you can do, but training is part of that. And the fourth principle is consistency. Like we talked about earlier, I could have a plan with my family and talk about it once, but if I'm not consistent in the message and I'm not drilling it into the head and talking to my son about the safe word, if I mentioned pineapple once, we talked about it for a week and that was it. 6 months down the line, and I say pineapple, he's like, oh, I want pineapple. Let's go get a pineapple. You got to be consistent about all of that, right? The situational awareness. And I challenge you guys to go out there and see if you just know the basics, like what I talked about. People walking around with their phone, people walking out with their groceries on their hands, totally full of groceries, right? If an attacker came up to them, just the dropping and fumbling around. When I walk out, I might have groceries in my left hand, but my phone and my keys aren't in my right. My right's free. And it's not even, I don't even think about it anymore. It's just like, hey, I'm walking in my car, my right hand's free. In case something pops off and say somebody comes out of the thing real quick, I'm ready. And that doesn't mean somebody can like kind of approach and I'm like, yeah, you ready? I'm walking around calm as day, but I'm ready at all times once I leave this house and go out of here. So situational awareness, strength and conditioning, intense training, because you got to put the time in, you got to do a lot of it, and consistency, and wrap all that up in one. And then that's the 4 principles of becoming hard to kill.
I love that, man. I'm just sitting here thinking about, I've seen a few videos on, especially Instagram. I follow a few high level influencers where, they just show certain things like people getting, mugged, killed, that kind of thing. And the person who, is the victim, you could tell they never saw it coming, or they were too distracted to even realize something was going to happen.
Yeah.
And, but even like the phone thing, walking around with your face buried in your phone, like you might as well just have a target on your back.
Yeah. And they're watching you and they're looking at you going, that guy's not paying attention. Watch this. And then it's as simple as that.
Can you share the story about the knife situation?
Yeah. We used to, My guy was like 6 months, so he's still in a stroller, but I had to work on my cardio still. So I went running with him on this trail. It was kind of a reservoir. So there's water here at the bike path, and it got real narrow. But on the side, there was all these bushes and shrubbery and stuff. And so as I'm running, I have my boy in the stroller and 2 dogs. And so I'm bopping around, and I see him about 50 yards up, come stumbling out of bushes and fumbling around. Right then and there, he's on my radar, right? Much like you said about the guy at the overpass, you're not making any blatant moves to do anything, but you are now, I'm cognizant that he's stumbling out there and he's talking to himself. So as we get closer, I notice he's wearing a bomber jacket in the summer. He's got a 40 ounce of beer in his hand. And again, I'm not looking at him meanly. I'm clocking him. He's on my radar. I'm watching him. He took this as he got closer. He took this as a threat. Like, crazy guys think, what are you looking at? What are you looking at? And I'm like, hey man, I have no problem. But what did I do? I took my dogs off the leash. I got my hands free. I had the stroller here and my dogs were tied, not to the stroller, but I think they were tied around my wrist or my waist or something. But I had my right hand free. And so now he's coming at me because he thinks I'm being a jerk and trying to get him going. He pulls out a knife. Like, he'd practiced this move. It was actually pretty slick. Out of his bomber jacket comes a big old knife. So now he has this big old knife in the 40, and he checks the 40 breaks, and he's going, and he's coming at me, right? I got my kid's stroller, and we're running out of room. We only got this small little bike path that we're on. And I got to him where he was behind me, and I just kept looking at him. He kept lunging at me. He wasn't making like a threatening, like trying to hit me, but I got enough space. I just ran. I just turned around with my boy in the stroller and the dogs, and I ran. And he wasn't going to give chase. He was hammered. He was an idiot, but it got my attention. I went and I called a couple of big bikes were coming down the other way. And I said, hey guys, there's an irate guy down there waving around. Now he has a knife and doing all this stuff. I called the cops. They couldn't figure out because this was one city where the trail started. This was another one where it ended. Other across the street from the reservoir was another city. So they were all calling me going, where is it at? And I said, it's right in the middle. They never came. I ended up seeing this guy when I was in my car. He pulled up on a bicycle with all his cans on the thing right next to me. And I'm like, man, oh man, this is it. I wanted to do all the things that I tell people not to do, right? I took it personal. This asshole, but I could have nudged him. I could have ruined his day. I'd had a cop friend and he's like, why bother? That guy doesn't even know who you are. You were just somebody who he could do his little thing to. He doesn't know who you are. And I said, well, what if he did come at me and threaten me? And he goes, then destroy him. And he goes, destroy him, but don't call us because you have more to lose, right? You have a wife, a kid, a house, a job, all this stuff. He wakes up and he's just going to go to jail or whatever. And he has nothing to lose. He's like, oh, I got three meals in a cot. So it was just a bad scenario. It taught me, I always take lessons out of everything that I did. I went and I asked, my bike mentor what to do. I asked some cops and what to do. And I just took it all and rolled it up as an experience, a lesson. And it's a good story now, right? That was it.
That's pretty crazy. I mean, that would definitely, it was a good thing that you did what you did. And you probably could have just annihilated the guy probably.
Yeah.
Especially since he was in a drunken stupor. But it just goes to show that, we don't always have to engage in the threat. Right.
And that's hard. That's hard for me. That's hard for a lot of people because pride, right? You think like 16-year-old me would have like, I just walked away from a fight. What a loser. Oh, I got the, whatever machismo thing you want to put on it. But to me, what was the point? Like, right. I'm glad I handled it that way, but there's still a part of me that says, man, I could have did a 1-2. I could have kicked. Wow. I could have done all that. I could have done the Steven Seagal stuff. But the mature dad, father thing, and husband thing was to walk away and to live to fight another day, right? And so it's hard. You get egged on, you get people, when I talk about it in the book, like people will nudge you in the shoulder or something. Road rage is another example. Don't engage in that stuff because you don't know other people's crazy, right? To me, I think it's absolutely insane to pull a knife on another human being. To him, it was a Tuesday. He didn't give a shit. And so when you're doing these road race scenarios where people are out there, you don't know, they might have just got out of prison. Prison is no big deal to them. Prison to me scares the shit out of me. I never want to go there. I don't want to have any part of it. Some of these people driving on the road, they go in and out and it's no big deal. So harming you, shooting you, ramming you with their car is not a big deal to them. So you don't know other people's crazy. So you don't want to engage. I mean, if it's life threatening and your family's involved and all that, yeah, you got to engage. But if it's just a normal pissing match, stay clear of it. Don't engage. Even with 20 plus years of fighting experience, I don't want to engage in it, right? I don't need to. There's nothing to prove. I'm not out there trying to get a UFC championship fight for beating up the local. None of that is important. Getting home to my family is the number one goal. And that's all I think about now. So if he thinks he won that little mental battle because he pulled the knife and I ran, hey, fine with me. I know where I stand in my eyes, and so it doesn't bother me. So I would tell people, don't engage in that kind of crap because you're never going to win. I mean, even if you knock the guy out and all that, you might get blood on your knuckles. He might have Hep C. Now you got vigor. There's no real winning, especially at 47. There's no winning for me if I engage in any kind of battle like that over prideful shit. To save my family, 100%, I'll get involved. But if it's something over, you looking at me? Okay, yeah, sorry, brother. No harm, no foul. Just keep on moving. But yeah, it's don't engage if you don't have to. But know how to engage if you do have to.
One thing that I was taught in Krav, actually, this was in Krav Maga. I'd love to get your take on this. And I've heard it from two different instructors, one with Krav Maga and then another discipline that I took for a while. And I've shared this with my kids, which is if someone squares off on you or they're threatening you or something like that, never like square off with your fists like this, like before the fight starts. Like it's always like this, for those of you guys watching us on YouTube, it's your hands up.
Yeah.
Right. It's like this. And I was taking my 9-year-old through this because he told me, he's like, there's this kid at school who's like slapping me. Right. I was like, if that's the case, which I was like, what do you do? And this was before I was teaching him a few things. And he was just like, I just kind of like cower. And I was like, well, here's what you do. You put your hands up like this. Basically what you're showing him here is, I don't want to fight you, but your hands are still here. So when he goes in to slap you, you're here. Right. Yeah. And he'll hit the hands and whatnot. Plus you can also strike if you want with your hands up like that. What are your thoughts on it? So the language that you're saying, so you agreed with me when you're like, yeah, your hands are up like this. Why is that?
If somebody comes at you like that and you're like, hey man, it's non-threatening to them. Because like this knucklehead who pulled a knife on me, he thought I was being an aggressor or wanted conflict because of my look. I wasn't looking at him negatively or trying to intimidate him. My look was, I'm clocking you now because I have other things I have to worry about. But if you go, say, if I would have engaged, like, let's go. Well, now he knows, like, right, basic animal instinct. This is more threatening than this. This is like, hey, I don't want any part of this, but you're still aware. You can slap. You can. If he starts throwing a punch, you can do all that stuff. But this is less threatening. This tells them that they think they might have the upper hand because he's not ready to do combat. But this, you have more ability, right? If he throws a punch, you can parry, you can slap it, you can do all this. You can. It's just the way I've always been taught. It's the way I always fight, even when I do sparring stuff. Obviously, if I have the gloves on, it's different. But it's a less threatening movement when your hands are up, and you're quicker when you have to do other things, right? If he comes down, I can just make that fist coming right down the line, or like I just did, I can strike him in the throat, in the eyes, or do whatever. So to me, I've always been taught. I did a lot of Krav training as well. And it's always just like, hey, man, I don't want an issue. I don't want an issue. If they keep engaging, then you engage and you have to do it. But I think the core responsible of that, or the core meaning of that, is it's less threatening. And, just human nature. When you like look at gorillas, there's threatening. You show their teeth to a gorilla, that's a sign of aggression. So if you see somebody do this, and even if they're drunk, and I watch a lot of sports fights where they're in the Raider fans versus Charger fans. And as soon as somebody does that, the other guy gets puffed up, and we call it the peacock dance. And it's another step in the evolution of we are going to do battle. So if you can eliminate that and just be like, hey, I don't want a problem. I don't want a problem. You were still ready to act and you still got your hands up and you can block and you can do all that, but it's not as much as this. It's like, I mean, just look right now. What's more threatening, this? Or like, hey, let's go. You just, it's kind of just how the signs and the present that you want to present to your opponent or the guy who's being a knucklehead.
Yeah. Okay. Definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm glad you cleared that up and gave us some marching orders on that. Yeah. As you gave us, obviously, and I typed this all out, the situational awareness, the strength and conditioning, the training, learning skills and that kind of thing. When it comes to one question, I'm really curious as we wrap up here is most men will look at themselves as, well, I'm not worthy to teach my kid how to defend himself, or I don't know exactly what I'm doing, or I just feel unequipped to do that type of work. And I say it's because you're a father that you have to really step into that role even more, right? And by doing it, my personal opinion is go learn it too.
Yeah.
Or go learn it ahead of them, right? Everybody should have the privilege and the confidence of knowing how to protect themselves, even if it's in the most basic way.
100% agree. Yeah.
So, yeah, what advice do you have as we wrap up for the men who might be feeling that way of like, I just don't know what I'm doing. Like, and who am I to teach them? I don't even know what I'm doing.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, everybody starts at ground zero. Everybody walks in the first time to a dojo or a fight studio and doesn't know anything. I was there. Everybody who's ever fought has been in that first step. So what we talked about a little bit earlier was don't tell your kids, show them. So go to the training with your kids, go, there's always kid classes, stay for the adult ones. Show your kid, right? Even if you're green and you don't know what you're doing, just show them a little bit how to hold their hands so they're not, tucking their thumbs. Show them some basics. Google it, YouTube it. Go to YouTube University yourself. Learn the bare minimum. So that way you can at least show your kids and they can think, okay, you don't lose any credit to your, in your kids' eyes. You're like, okay, dad taught me a couple of things, but then go to the next step and learn yourself going to jiu-jitsu, going to boxing, take a couple of classes. There's so many seminars that are on the weekends. There's tactical courses you can take that are just, a day long. Absorb it. I love it. I mean, maybe I'm an extreme. I've talked to some of my guys and we're putting together a seminar in February. And it originally was going to be 8 hours of just fighting. And because I love that stuff. I love fighting all day long. They're like, you're going to kill the average guy. So we're doing more mental and physical challenges as well. But YouTube University, Google, any kind of information, reach out to me. I'll help you. I'll give you the basics. I'll run some videos of things that you can just do basic, and then go to the next level and definitely go into a place. And your kid will realize like, okay, dad knew the basics, but hey, let's go sharpen our skills together. And what a cool experience with your kid that dad's doing it as well. Like kids don't care what you're doing as long as you're doing it with them and that you're learning. And you don't have to say that, hey, little Bobby, I don't know too much either. So let's go together. You're like, yeah, let's go sharpen our skills together. This will be a cool father-son experience. Also with daughters, I highly suggest and highly advise daughters get involved too, because we all know the crazy world is out there. But don't be afraid that your son or your kids are going to look at you differently by not knowing it. I mean, I urge you to learn to be a protector because like we spoke about earlier, there's bad, evil people looking at you to see whether they want your kid or not. So I put off that vibe. I put out a vibe that, hey, I'm a nice, lucky guy. I surf, I'm mellow, I'm chill. But I put out that vibe. If you ever touch my son and my wife, there's a whole nother level that you don't want to see. And so, and I don't wear a shirt. I mean, this one says Savage, but I don't wear a shirt that says test me today or come at me or anything to provoke it. But I put off an aura that says, I'm not the guy that you want to be doing this with. And so those dads that don't have that, get it. Go out there and find how you can get it. And it could be a jiu-jitsu class once a week, but the consistency has to be there and you'll start building a little base of confidence. And that goes a long way. Your kids will see it. You'll start to notice it. Your spouse will start to notice it. Nothing bad can happen from training. Yeah, you'll get banged up. Yeah, you'll get injuries. I mean, that's just part of it. I tell my son, he had a little back issue the other day because he rolled for 2 hours. And I said, son, that's a choice we made. That's the life we've chosen. Like, we're going to be banged up. We're going to be sore. But you know what? If I'm not sore, then I know I haven't put the work in. And so I got to do it harder. So any dads out there that are on the fence, teach your kid a little bit of what you know. And even if it's not the right proper technique and everything, at least you're showing your kid that you are capable, and then go learn together. And I think that's, your kids will love it. You'll love it. And to me, I could talk about this whole other podcast, but jiu-jitsu is so much more to me than just going and rolling. If I'm having a bad day in business, jiu-jitsu helps. If I'm having a bad day at anything, jiu-jitsu helps, right? There's so many correlations between jiu-jitsu and fighting in everyday life that has made me a better person because I train, in every other aspect that I do.
I love it, man. You have a seminar coming up in February? Tell us about that.
Yeah, February 25th and February 26th in Dana Point, California. Like I said, we have Ian McCall. He's an ex-UFC fighter. I have a BJJ black belt, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I have a specialist in hand-to-hand combat, close quarters, and myself, and I have other people coming in. I have a high-level Marine guy talking about situational awareness and profiling and seeing dangers like left of bang. It's a 2-day event, and we're going to mentally challenge you and physically challenge you. Like I said earlier, I would love to just to put the gloves on and fight for 8 hours for 2 days, but I understand the average person, A, doesn't want to do that, and B, doesn't want to go home with busted eyes and all that stuff. So it's going to be physical in the aspect of, we're going to have things that you need to learn. The fundamentals. We're not going to put you in a cage with a UFC fighter, but we are going to teach you, if this guy comes at you, like we talked about, this is what you do. Now he engages past that. What do you do? And there's things that you can walk away from this 2-day event knowing that if you come home and practice it at your own time in your own place, you keep putting that repetition in, it could save your life. And mental challenges as well, like the situational awareness, right? You can't just bebop through life and go, oh, I know how to throw a 1-2 combo and a leg kick. I'm totally fine. And then walk around with your head down. We're going to teach you mental game from a UFC fighter. How did he mentally prepare to go into a cage and take on people who wanted to kill him, right? In the UFC, they're trying to take your head off. So how do you mentally prepare for that? How do you physically prepare for an attack? All the fundamentals. And so how you can survive an attack. And so we'll teach everything from situational awareness, safe words. We'll drive around and spot dangers and how to do what we do, elite protectors do on the daily to keep us alive. And so that's a 2-day event, February 25th, February 26th, Dana Point, California. If you guys have any more information, go to savagesyndicategroup.com. I actually haven't even posted up the stuff on there. I'm going to start in a week, but it's going to be, I love these courses myself. And so I put everything that I've done. I've done tactical training. I've done Tim Kennedy's sheepdog response courses. And it's everything that I love to do. And I rolled it into my own event and February 25th and 26th.
Very cool, man. Well, gents, we're going to have a link in the show notes for you there. If you guys want to attend that event, obviously out in Dana Point, California. Also, just some of the things that we talked about in this podcast, just kind of putting a bow on it, right? Is being aware, know what green is, yellow and red, right? Situational awareness, not being on your phone, making sure that you have a safe word, which I thought, by the way, was fascinating with the family when to use it in public. Situational awareness, also strength and conditioning and training, knowing how to defend yourself and your family. We're going to have all the links in the show notes. All you guys will have to do is head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday82 for this show. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday82. Josh, this has been awesome, man. I took a ton of notes as you were talking. Just this incredible, beautiful refresher that you gave me and gave the audience. And thanks for the work that you're doing, man. Because we do need to be sheepdog strong. We do need to be savages, right? The kind. I love the quote: "Be a kind, dangerous man."
Yeah. Right. And that's true because, savage people think of a bad, kind of stigma with savage, but be a savage when you need to be, but be 100% teddy bear, gentle guy outside of that. Right.
Yeah.
I have the yin and yang. I surf and, there's things around me that I have surfing and calm yoga and all that. But if you flip the switch, I have those skills as well. So you don't have to walk around being a jerk and being a nasty person. You can be a great person, but also, like what they say, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Yeah.
Just prepare for battle because you never know when it's going to happen. And I'd rather be prepared than not prepared.
Good
So
stuff,
thank you very
man.
much for letting me on this show. I love it. And I appreciate the time.
Again, man, thanks for your book. Gentlemen, if you, at the very least, go out and grab Josh's book. Like I said, if you're watching us on YouTube, I'm holding it up right here, which is Hard to Kill. How to improve your self-defense skills, ignite your inner savage, and protect your family at all costs. It's a bestseller. Go check it out. It's a very easy read too, by the way. Again, head on over to thedadedge.com/Friday82 for this show. You'll find links to connect with Josh as well as his seminar. Josh, thank you so much for coming on, man. This was fun.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. And I'm sorry if I rattled on. I could talk about this stuff all day, but I thank you and appreciate you having me on here.
My pleasure, man. My pleasure. All right, gentlemen, go out. Live legendary. Take care.